Hey guys, and welcome to /X Games. So I'm sure at one point in time you've wanted to create really fast, realistic bullets, only to realize that because the bullet is traveling really fast, it makes collisions a little harder to do. You can't simply just listen for a collision event between the bullet and the target, because sometimes it's just not there. So I've got this to demonstrate this. As you can see, our bullet is hitting, a few of the targets, but it's not hitting this third one from the left. Why is that? If you take a closer look, you'll notice that the bullet only exists about here and about here. It doesn't ever exist in the space that the target occupies. Therefore, simply listening for a collision isn't going to work, because this bullet is moving so fast that in the frames it's traveling at that speed, it is essentially teleporting from place to place. So a collision never occurs. So today I'm going to be showing you how you can instead use collision line, which is basically just a line drawn from one point to another. We're going to use that line to determine if anything is in the path of where that bullet's going. If so, we're going to decrease its health. Now, I'm not going to be using GameMaker's built-in collision line because it only returns the instance ID of the first instance it collides with. Now, that's not very great if we want to implement the solution into soft targets, because we want that bullet to collide with multiples. We want it to go through targets and perhaps into some other ones. So I'm going to be using a custom script, compliments of gmlscripts.com, and we're going to be returning a list of IDs that line collides with. So let's jump into the code, and I'm going to show you what we need to do. Firstly, let's go to gmlscripts.com. I've put a link in the description, and we're going to be using collision line list. So as you can see, it takes in all the same arguments that collision line takes, only this returns a list data structure populated with the IDs of instances colliding with a given line, or no one if no instances found. So there we go, we're just going to slap this right into that script, and then we're going to use it. So let's copy all of this. Let's go to our project. Let's create a script. Let's paste it in. Let's grab this name. Paste it over here. There we go. Cool. So let's see if we can work out what's going on here. Firstly, I want to get rid of this bracket and this one. We don't need those. There we go. Cool. So we're getting our x1 and y1 of the start point. We're getting our x2 and our y2. That's the end point. We're getting the object we want to check for collisions with. So this will be our target. Are those collisions precise? Well, true or false? Not me. That is the instance that this script is being called from. And here is a DS list that it's creating. So with all the objects of type obj that we're passing through in argument 4, if we're including the one that's calling this, or the ID of this object is not equal to the other ID, so the ID of the object calling it, then I equals collision line, and then we're drawing it out. It's the collision line between this xy point, that xy point, and the instance ID of this object. So if I returns something, so as long as it's not no one, then we're going to add it to the DS list, and so on and so on and so on. So if this DS list is empty, then we're going to destroy it to prevent memory leaks. Then we're going to be setting the DS ID to no one to say that nothing was returned. Then we're going to return DS ID to the caller, and it could either be no one or a list containing all the instance IDs of all the objects we want to collide with. Cool, so let's go to where all the magic happens. If we go to Object Player, right over here, and let's go into Global Left button. So here we're saying, well, if we can shoot, then create a bullet at the precise place we want it to start from. We're giving it a direction, an image angle as speed, and we are adding a pause between the shooting. So you can see the speed is quite high, which is ultimately causing the problem. So instead of all this, let's move that down. And let's add some fresh code over here. So I'm going to create a list. This is going to be a list of all instances that are colliding with the path of the bullet that we're about to shoot. Then we're going to say list equals collision, and we're going to call that line list right over there. Start is going to be xy. That's fine. It's like the center of our player. Then the end of the line is going to be x plus length dir x. And this is going to be a bullet range. And then image angle of our player. and the y is going to be y plus length dir y, bullet range, and our player's image angle. Then here we're going to say object target. See what's next. Precise. Yeah, let's say true. Not me is going to be false. Cool stuff. So let's go through that. From our XY, that's our origin of our player, I'm going to pick an X coordinate, and this piece of code here is going to choose a coordinate bullet range away from our player. That's a distance. We're going to initialize that in the create. So if this was 500 pixels, this piece of code here would get as an X coordinate 500 pixels away from this one, and it would be in line with the image angle. So wherever we're pointing, 500 pixels ahead of us. And then it's the same with the Y. Here is our object we want to collide with, object target. We are saying it's precise, and we are saying that this object is part of it. Doesn't really matter, but there we go. Cool. So let's put that all on the screen. Great stuff. So now that we've got a list of the IDs of all the instances of object target, we can do things to them. But firstly, I want to say only do things, well, if this DS list exists. Oh, it's actually DS exists. The ID is list. Because remember, that could return no one, and it won't actually be a list. And here we're going to say it's a DS type list. Alright, so now that it exists, we can do stuff. Because we don't want to be accessing elements of a list that doesn't exist, because that's going to cause errors. For var I equals 0, I is less than ds list size, and it's a list, I++. Okay, so we iterating through that list. Var instance equals ds list find value, and find value expects an element, and that's going to be, well, that's position I. There we go. So we're going to get the value. So that could be the ID of the first target or the last one, doesn't matter, whichever one we're currently on in that list. Then here's when we add the meat and potatoes. Pretty much everything we have normally in this collision event over here. So what's going on? If it's got health, then we are adding it to collision IDs and whatnot. Now, because this object bullet isn't going to be handling any of the collisions and removing any of the health from any of these targets, I'm not going to be using this DS list to store all the IDs of everything it collides with, because this line has given us only one ID for every instance, so there's no point. So I only really need a few lines of code from this. So then let's add a with, put instance in there. Then we don't have to keep prefixing it with instance. So then we can just copy paste this code exactly as it is and reduce it by 10, or whatever value you want to reduce health by. There we go. Then once we've done all that, we want to make sure that we destroy our list. We don't want that hanging around in memory. And then we do the usual count sheet equals false and alarm 0 equals 5. Now I'm keeping this bullet object right over there. It's still going to be sending out a bullet, and we can make this, I don't know, 250 if we want. The bullet is only a graphical representation of this feature. Right? We're going to be removing the actual collision event between our target and object bullet because it's no longer needed. That means we can actually also remove everything to do with object bullets code in here. It doesn't need a collision ID, doesn't need a list of collision IDs, and we can just get it to destroy itself when it goes out the ROM. Now I did need to create, let's go back here, this bullet range variable in the create. Let's set it to 1000 pixels. Okay, so we're drawing a line from our player to 1000 pixels in the direction he is pointing. So let's just go back to global left button, just make sure everything is okay here. If we can shoot, grab a list of instances of type object target that this bullet will collide with. If the DS list exists, well then cycle through all the instance IDs that we've got on this list and remove and reduce their health by 10. Oh, we should actually move this DS list within that if condition, because we don't want to destroy a list that doesn't exist. Cool, so that should be great. Let's test this out and see what happens. So here we go, we've got our targets, they're bobbing about. If I shoot, see there we've got a bullet going, it seems to be going really fast. And we are drawing an invisible line between the player and where my mouse is. So if I put it over here and shoot, see that? Cool, huh? Player's health is going down, the bullet isn't actually colliding. We are assuming that based upon this line and the speed in which the bullet is traveling, by the time our player shoots it to the time it hits a target, that counts as a hit. And just like that, we are no longer relying on listening to a collision event between an instance of an object that's going way too fast and a target that is going really slow. So that about wraps up fast bullets and collisions. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, send me a PM. You can find the project files straight in the description. You can follow me on various social media networks. If you like this video as well as many of my other ones, please check out my Patreon campaign. I really do appreciate your support. So now that I've finished this video, I've done quite a few of them that have covered normal sort of day-to-day concepts around GameMaker. I really want to jump back into networking. There's a lot of you guys that I'm sure are waiting for those. I haven't done one in a while. So that's what I really want to do. That's what you should be expecting next. So until then, happy coding, and I'll see you then.